I always assumed that the youth of the characters, Rob is 15 when his father is taken prisoner?
Yeah.
I always assumed that the youth of the characters might be true to medieval times. People got started earlier because they lived much less longer. Is that grammatically correct? And I assumed that you generally raise the age for the TV show because it just would have been hard for us to look at a 15-year-old leading an army and not be skeptical. Not to mention the sexual situations that many people get into.
The sexual situation was a huge part of it, probably the principal part of it. I mean, it was the Daenerys question. In the book, she's 13 years old when we pick her up. She's pregnant at 14, and you cannot legally portray that on TV. That's not legal, and we also were filming in Britain, so British law obeys, and in some ways it's even more stringent than American law. Even if we had cast a 17-year-old actress portraying a 13-year-old girl, that would have been a violation of British obscenity laws. So instead of a 17-year-old playing a 13-year-old, we have a 22-year-old playing a 17-year-old. But if you're going to age up Daenerys, because everything ties into what happened, during Robert's Rebellion and the sack of King's Landing and the Battle of the Trident, then you have to age up all of the characters. But I think the question that you mentioned there about, yes, believability is another question. Although it's frustrating because, as you say, it did happen. It happened all through history. There were plenty of young lords who led armies at 14 and 15 and won battles and all that. The whole concept of adolescence, as we have that in our modern society, is a modern construct. There was no such concept of being a teenager in the ancient world or the medieval world. There were coming of age ceremonies, and when you came of age, you were of age and you were an adult. We still have, remnants of that. Of course, Jewish people have the bar mitzvah, and today I am a man. The 13-year-old says, I believe, and
was exactly my word.
And today I am a man, so now I will go out and
back to the eighth grade.
Get married, drive and drink. No, you won't. You won't. You'll go right back to being this sort of, child. And Catholicism, where I was raised, has a similar rite, the confirmation rite, which also takes place at 13, where you are expected to confirm as an adult the vows that were taken for you when you were baptized by other people, by your godparents as a child. Now you confirm them as the confirmation thing because you're all grown up at 13. So we still have the rites, we just don't believe in them anymore. We've created this whole artificial thing of teenagerdom. And I don't know, I suppose it's a sign of modern society where we keep pushing off adulthood further and further.
I still haven't gotten there.
More questions?
The number of 27-year-olds still living in their parents' basements is an alarming sign that pretty soon it's going to be 30 before you're allowed to move out.
This is not a convention to scold people for not growing up. Am I right, people? Come on, let's all finish here and go buy some more toys.
This gentleman.
Just how unstable is the orbit of the planet? I mean, we have winters lasting 20, 30 years.
It's fantasy. Orbital mechanics get nothing to do with it.
They last as long as George says they
The moon is made of cheese. How about right here?
A question of the character Marjorie. In the book, she's younger and not really involved. At least my impression in the politics of what the family is doing. But in the TV show, she's older and very much a manipulator of what's going on. How did they consult you on that change, and how do you feel about it?
Well, it's we did look at some younger Marjories, but Natalie Dormer was so fantastic that. That we decided to go with them, and I love that casting choice, man. She was in The Tudors, if any of you watched that. Tudors was, I think, first season had a few problems, but then it really picked up steam, and it was a great show, except for the lead. But if you disregard the guy playing Henry VIII, the wives were all fantastic, especially Natalie Dormer as Anne Boleyn, and she's amazing. But of course, she is older than Sir Loras, which is the reverse. In the books, Sir Loras is a year older than Marjorie. So it has affected the character somewhat.
You mentioned that you're writing, you write a couple of chapters about a character, and then you move on. Which character do you feel most at home writing?
Tyrion. Arya, too. Arya is a lot of fun. I could write a whole novel about Arya and Bravos, which I've been
She's serious.
She's just, she's just fun to write about.
Well, it seems like a recurring with both of those characters, who I think really resonate for a lot of people who read the books. You're fascinated with people who are perceived as outsiders, or someone who's not. You don't say, well, you don't normally in the course of life think, wow, the 10-year-old girl is really going to kick everyone's ass. Like, that's not something that's like the expected thing. Or have you had, not to get psychoanalytical here at the end of the panel, but have you felt like an outsider? Is that something that just kind of is a part of your makeup?
Sure. I mean, I suspect that's true of almost everyone in the hall here at a science fiction community. One of the great things about coming into fandom is, the sense that I certainly had, and I know a lot of fans have, I found my people at last. Because you've previously been in a lot of situations in high school and college and whatever, where you were the odd one, what used to be called nerds or geeks or all that. Before that was a term of pride and something that people self-identified with. It was pejorative, used to put one down. But I would say like 90% of the characters in Ice and Fire are misfits in one way or another. They are, Jon Snow is a bastard, Tyrion is a dwarf, Arya is the tomboy who doesn't fulfill her proper social roles. Dany is an exile who's lost everything. Sam is fat and rejected by his father, and you go on and on through the list. Brienne is another character who's, freakishly tall and manly, and therefore rejected as not fulfilling her proper roles. And I just find those characters fascinating to write about, and how people deal with that kind of. How do I find my place in society? Do I try to conform to what I'm supposed to be? Do I reject it? Do I carve out a new place for myself? And Tyrion, probably the one who's thought about it most, and he gives Jon Snow the advice to hear about, know what you are, accept what you are, and never forget what you are, because the world will not.
Just so we're clear, you're pro freakishly tall ladies? I'd say me.
Would you comment, sir, on your relationship with the number 7?
Well, it's a nice number. It's a prime number, so it's not divisible, and it's historically a lucky number. And it seemed to make a good number for my gods. I wanted to have a version of the Catholic faith, which has the Trinity, and so I looked for another number. I could have gone with 5, but I went with 7 instead. It seemed to balance out nicely and allow me to include the stranger, who was the most interesting part of that pantheon of 7. It was really just one god with 7 aspects, just as I was told as a kid that there was only one god, but he had 3 personae. So.
Can we do one more question? This guy right here.
What would you say to people who have read the books and they read all of the characters' chapters in order and then go back and read another character's chapter in order? That's how my friend read it. He unfortunately did not love the books as much as I have. And I wonder if that is why. Do you have any comments on that?
My sister, when I was growing up, would eat her peas first, and then her mashed potatoes, and then her meat. and she would never alternate them. And she didn't like them to touch on the plate either. So I, on the other hand, would take my mashed potatoes and sort of make a volcano out of them, and put the butter in the middle so it melted, and the peas on top of it, and smoosh it all together. And so I'm much more of a smoosh all the characters together and eat them all at once, then eat them separately.
I don't think we're going to find a better ending for the panel.